Hi everyone, I'm Vincent de Mboutchouang, a PEP Researcher Fellow. I'm going to present today our research titled Civil War and Labor Market Outcome in Sierra Leone that I wrote with my colleague Jorge Davalos and James from Basandi. In terms of motivation, I will say that Sierra Leone faced 10 years conflict that has heterogeneous causes and drastic impact. In terms of causes, we know 1995 support that bad governance led, it was bad governance that led you to join rebellion. And from King 2005, it was mainly the ambition to control for natural resources that causes this war. In terms of impact, they were huge social impact, especially the displacement of more than 2.1 million persons, the death of more than 50,000 persons, and more than 8,000 cases of human rights violation. In terms of economic impact, we may cite a huge recession, a loss in terms of welfare, and a loss as far on the human capital variables as education. Um, while we look at the research on the impact of conflict exposure to labor market outcomes, the results are really mixed as predicted by the theory, as you can see in the chart. So this study aimed to provide evidences on the lasting effects of civil war exposure on the wages and the labor market participation in Sierra Leone. By pursuing that objective, we are trying to bring we are trying to contribute in three ways. The first one, it is linked to the fact that, to the best of our knowledge, that is the first study in Sierra Leone that used original micro data set that are household data and conflict related data to examine the lasting effect of conflict exposure to labor market outcome. The second contribution is due to the fact that the study used a composite measure of exposure to conflict, linking or putting together measure related to loss of asset, to attempt to individual, and to attempt to public order. And the study also tried to discuss the return of education after the conflict. So in terms of empirical strategy, the study really used a different approach, that is using variation in conflict exposure, geographical variation and temporal variation in conflict exposure, to really get the impact of the conflict, not as an overall, but especially during different stage of life. That is in utero, up to 2 years after before the birth, early childhood between 0 and 3 years old, preschool age between 4 and 6 year olds, and primary school age between 7 and 30 years old. So we try to capture the exposure to conflict during those key stages of life on the labor market participation and wage. So people that are targeted in this study are people that were exposed to conflict during those key stages. In terms of as far as the main specification is concerned, we just consider one of the labor market outcome and link it with our key measure of conflict exposure. As I already said, we have crime against assets. We have 16 indicators. We have crime against or attempt to individual. We have 14 measure, and war operation or attempt to public order, we have 6 indicators. So we aggregate those indicators using 2 methods. One is just the total the number of crime, and the second aggregation method is an index obtained through a factor analysis. So we try to link in a regression the labor market outcome that we observe in the 2011 using the household survey with the exposure, with a measure of the exposure to conflict in key period of time for each individual. And based on this approach, we also add a lot of control variables and fixed effect just to make sure that the result that we obtain, the impact that we obtain are not biased. So in terms of results, our studies show that exposure to conflict during those key stages of life can reduce by up to 3% the probability to participate to labor market. And this result hold for why we distinguish between migrant and non-migrant, and show also that female are most likely to be more impacted than male. The study also show that um, this the exposure to conflict can have a lasting effect on wage in Sierra Leone for individual exposed during the pre-birth or up to the primary school age. So this is a huge and lasting effect that also that was also considered. And the result also showed that one of the main link, one of the main causal pathway of exposure to conflict on wage is education. The result also show that also confirm other pathways, especially some of the health variable as the difficulty on standing or the difficulty of stooping or crushing a knee for pre-birth, or the difficulty of lifting or carrying stuff for individuals exposed during primary school age. So at the end, this study has some policy implications because demonstrating that conflict exposure can have lasting effect, also called to have specific policies that will target individuals that was exposed during those key stages and try to strengthen their human capital and their human capital, that is education and health. So it's appealed to strengthen the policy in order to reverse as far as possible the negative impact of conflict exposure. Thank you for listening to my presentation. The working paper is on the PEP website, and we are trying also to finalize another paper related to this one, but using more recent data. Thank you.